I know recently I've been doing a lot of electronic projects, but my true passion is software development. And for my next videos, I'm going to do a 2 or 3 part series of developing an adventure game using the Z80 assembler language on the Amstrad. And this will be the end result. Walking around a character on a large world map, finding treasures in chests, and trying to win the game. The game I've developed is really a proof of concept, nothing fancy, but it gives you the basics on different techniques of using the Z80 language. So this video might not be for everyone, but sit back and you can go through step by step on building this adventure game. So let's now see how all this came about. One day, trawling through the Amstrad CPC software websites, I came across this desktop environment system. I'm thinking, hey, this is like a version of Windows for the Amstrad. It's got icons and drop-down menus, mouse activated. This is amazing. It was released by CompuSoft and developed by Michael Beckett, but only a few applications were ever made. I thought, well, what a shame. And scrolling down further, I noticed the manual and hey, a programming guide. Now I'm really interested. To use DES on your Amstrad, you can download the ROMs just by clicking on this link. The programming guide recommends using Maxim as its preferred Z80 assembler. You can easily find Maxim, go to the downloads page, using a ROM is preferred, and download the ROM. Maxim is what I'll be using for developing this program. So I downloaded the programming guide and it's really well documented and detailed about how to use the desktop environment routines for your own code. There's at least 50 or so different jump blocks to do almost anything you need, like print characters to the screen, create windows, and handle click or mouse inputs. And I thought, well, let's write a game and bring life back into the desktop environment system. To get the document environment system working, I'm using a Retro Virtual Machine emulator. I've done another video on how to program using Retro Virtual Machine, but all you need to do is create a ROM, manage ROMs, and then install DES in slots between 1 and 6. And I've also got the Maxim ROM installed as well, and that's what I'll be using to develop the program. Hit OK, close that off, press reset, and the desktop should automatically fire up. You can use the arrow keys to move the mouse pointer, control arrows to go a bit faster. You can insert a disk by clicking on the disk link, insert the disk, go back, press A, it'll catalog the disk, go to the DES program, it's signified by a picture of a mouse, select it by pressing space, F for file, and R for run. Okay, let's start programming. How do we start our program to work under the desktop environment system? Well, it tells you in the programming manual. You just need to have the words DES application and the start address at the top of the file. Also, Maxim uses the right derivative to automatically create a binary file. And then you got to type the rest of the code. It also gives you pointers about exiting back to the desktop environment system by doing this push, call the main program, pop the return address back, and then jump back to the desktop environment. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Z80, that's confusing. I mean, look at this code. It just looks like a bunch of random words and letters and numbers. It's actually not that difficult. There's not a lot you can do with a number between 0 and 255. And you can summarize the Z80 instructions into 4 basic components. First, you can load data and you can save data. Load data to RAM or into a register on the CPU and save it back again. You can also rotate the bits in each byte, and each byte is 256. You can rotate or shift or check the bit, set it, unset it, and check its status. You can do simple mathematics, just adding, subtracting, and or XOR, and you can jump to various locations in memory, and sometimes you can jump and return back to where you started from. And that's about it. There are some extra commands that kind of combine all these together. Once you get your head around it, it's really not a difficult language to use. I'm going to use Maxim as my assembler. I've installed it as a ROM, as you can see here. I'm going to use mode 2 so I can see more. Do pipe and M to run. Press T for the text editor and edit text. Right, we'll call it Advent, put a dot so it doesn't leave a binary, and I'll keep typing away. Here is my program. Write adventure as the binary, using the org directive, start at 4000, create the des application by writing des application colon and 4000 as the start address, save the return address, call adventure, which is the main program. Once that exits, return the return address and jump back to des. At the moment, I just want it to hang. To do that, there's a des jump block called mouse, which waits for user to select using pointer. It's at address 9263. All right, that should work. I press escape, I save it, advent.z80, just to make sure I don't want to lose anything before I compile it. Now I press A to compile it. Okay, a few seconds later it's compiled. Go back to my des environment, load the disk up, and now I can see the word advent there with the mouse icon. That means it's recognized as a des application. Press space to select it, press F for file and R for run. And there we have it, a program which does not much, but it works. And pressing any key will exit to the des desktop. And there you go. Let's make this more interesting, but before we do that, we need to plan what we're going to do with this adventure game. This is my design for the game. Have a menu up the top, which could give you access to instructions or quitting the game. Have a main window on the left with directional keys and maybe a look button. Game window on the right where the character moves around, and then some objective for the game like finding treasures, and a message window down the bottom.